Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. I know the word on everybody's lips is union budget. And to understand it a little bit better, we've got someone really fantastic with us. We've got a person who's heading as Professor of Finance and Vice Chairman of the Indian Institute of Finance with us on the show this morning. I'll get to his accolades and his wonderful, lot of things that he wears on his chest in a bit. But first things first, we have Professor Aman Agarwal with us. Good morning, Professor. It is super to have you on the show. Thank you so much for taking out the time. I deeply appreciate it.
Good morning. Namaskar.
So many things with regards to the union budget, but I want to give everybody a little bit of an insight into you before we go on. I believe you're editing the Quarterly Journal of Finance for Finance India as the associate editor. You're also officiating director at the
Executive editor.
Business School. Yeah?
The executive editor.
Oh, there we okay. Executive editor, wonderful. You have a lot of accolades to your name, but I think one of my most favorite ones is that you're the director down at the IIF, which is the Indian Institute of Finance. When you saw this budget kind of come out today, of course, our finance minister chairing it, there are a lot of takeaways from the same. But if you had to tell me the number one takeaway for me as an ordinary citizen, what would that be?
You see, from a common person's perspective, whether it's a youth or an elderly, in my opinion, three words which synchronize with the budget for me, specifically this budget, is transparency, accountability, and sustainability. In my opinion, these are the three things which have been kept in focus by the finance minister in terms of trying to deliver a pathway ahead for the economy. Not only from a domestic perspective, not that only people of India or investors in India need to look at it, because India is a global village. Like it used to be thousands of years back, even today, India is a global village in terms of people wanting to come and stay, enjoy the culture, the food, the cuisine, the lifestyle. And similar is the case where Indians are wanting to travel across the globe, not a zone in the world where you cannot find an Indian food. I've traveled to over 60 plus countries in the last 25 years, and I have been able to find a good Indian restaurant and a food every part of the world.
Right.
Small towns, small countries as well. So this is something which binds the economies of the world to India, not now, but for ages, for centuries. Not to forget, we were the country which introduced spices and textiles to Europe. We don't know how they'd be looking if they did not have it, long back. But having said that, I think some of the key takeaways which could clearly be seen in these three domains is the digital imprint framework which the government is trying to create to induce this transparency, accountability, and sustainability. Whether it's a question of agriculture, which houses the largest population of this country, in my opinion, 60% to 72% of the total population of India is engaged with pure agriculture or agro-based industries. So we still have a large chunk of population tuning to roughly about 800 million people. That's roughly like 2.5 United States of America, or almost double, almost 1.5 times of Europe, which is nothing else but they try to create, not only the fact that they need to have digital imprints, digital structures, drone structures, agriculture universities need to be integrated in the framework to enhance the productivity, to see that about 23 lakh crores to be paid for MSP pricing by direct payment to their accounts. Now, this is something which is uniquely through the JAM Trinity, which they have been able to establish. JAM is
I want to pause.
Jandhan mobile and
Right. I want to pause for a second. And what you were saying is so important because one of the main highlights, and which you already brought in beautifully, is this whole idea of introducing, in addition to all these payments, a digital rupee currency using blockchain, which is to start using, you start with the RBI, issued by the RBI starting 2022, 2023. Could you explain that to us a little bit better, please?
I will just come in a second.
Sure.
Just two more points which I wanted to make on digital. Then they induced education. One channel per class is one they're looking at. Healthcare imprints. Again, healthcare facilities integrating with the Ayushman Bharat, the National Health Register, digital platform again. Similarly, post office banking, something which I have been speaking for almost 12 years now. Spoke first at Lok Sabha television and All India Radio way back in 2009 and 10. I'm happy that they're bringing it to reality. Although Pradhan Mantri Narendra Modi did bring it a couple of years back as post-office banking, but it did not happen in a big way. Now they're doing it in the way which I suggested, is integrating the technological framework. And the lastly, which you also said, two framework. One is the digital currency. I'm happy to again put it before your audience. 2013 till 2016, we did an extensive work and we projected that we should have digital currency by a central bank, but this cryptocurrency does not hold a stand because they are not a tangible asset. They are not an appropriate asset class, and they defy the asset class qualities which are there, and hence they should be banned. We are happy that Arun Jaitley in his budget about 3 years back, 2017 or 17 if I remember correctly, did mention that they are not a legitimate currency. After that, multiple agencies have done. Then the work was published in Finance India also, and various other newspapers and channels, including Doordarshan and others, and 16, 17 both. And then immediately after that, RBI created a committee to introduce digital currency. And you see, the blockchain is a good technology. So the technology is not a problem. It's a platform.
It's the technology of blockchain that is really the future in so many ways.
Correct. But here the digital currency is that, like you pay 100 rupees to someone and buy a good or services, or 10 rupees or 20 rupees. Today, what you do is when you do it in a digital platform is that you use a medium, some company who is using actually some technology to transfer that money from your account or credit card or debit card or some other wallet which you have created into the other person's money. It is not direct payment. It's not like that 100 rupees. Digital currency would be direct payment. So there is no third party involvement.
I want to ask you for a second.
Makes a major difference.
Do you have children?
I do.
Are your children, because it's usually the younger folk, are your children invested in crypto?
Oh, no. My child is very young as of now because I got married very late. But in any case, you see, children, let me tell you about crypto. The problem with crypto is, in very simple man's perspective, you don't know the birthplace. You don't know where it exists. It's like in a cloud. You do not know where will it land up. Who is holding it? Where will it be holding? Which law will apply? Which country will restrict it? It may be like recently, a small trader was holding crores of rupees of crypto product, which was hacked and landed up in people with terrorists all across the globe. Now imagine within a few seconds, it landed from one place to the other, and no one knew that this gentleman in a small town in Delhi was holding crores of rupees in crypto format. Now, how do you go about doing accountability? How do you bring about safety? How do you don't know even which kind of currency he was holding, whether it was born in India or it was born in Venezuela or it was born in some unknown city somewhere.
Yeah.
Or, so this is one of the biggest problems with this crypto product. There is no my bap, as we say, the parenthood is not known. And so if we don't know the parenthood, we cannot control it at all. Since the my bap is not there, it is completely beyond regulation. So even people who say that we will be able to bring in regulation cannot bring in regulation because there is no boundary which controls it, or it can be controlled. They have said that in the budget, fortunately, about virtual assets. What are virtual assets?
I was just going to get to that, and you already have got to it so beautifully. So please, I'm not even going to ask the question then in that case, because I mean, you've come to it beautifully. My next question was about, the transfer of virtual digital assets. Please go on.
You see, virtual, if you might be reading in newspapers recently for last 6 months, very rich people are actually buying and selling art, digital art, for billions and millions of dollars, and it is getting transferred, held in some form, in some kind of structure, in somewhere which is held by them. Okay. Now this is which they are there. So please understand, crypto products will also fall in this category, but they're not direct because we have a cryptocurrency bill which has been recently introduced by one of the the state finance ministers. Even Piyush Goyal has done it, created the framework and submitted it to the parliament. Now that bill, once it becomes an act, will clarify what will be the fate of crypto products per se. But in terms of virtual assets, any kind of virtual assets.
So we don't have complete clarity on crypto as a means of exchange yet. Am I right in saying that?
Very correct. You see, the only clarity on that is the Supreme Court order which allowed crypto products to be traded on exchanges and to be bought and sold. But given in the light the fact that there has been a structure where they're trying to actually restrict and say that it's not a legal tender, it's not a legal product, we do not know how to control it. So as a result, it is very clearly coming out that the fate of this particular product is not clear. What virtual digital products is any kind of product. It could be your money held in some kind of a wallet, it could be some kind of other thing which could be held. So so there could be softwares, patents in a digital form. It's a virtual asset. You buy a patent, develop something. Suppose you develop a new technology, you patent it, and it's in a virtual digital form. So that becomes a virtual asset.
So let me ask you on that note, Professor Aman, say for example, like you said, I'm holding a patent in blockchain, right? And I'm drawing an income from that patent on a daily / monthly / yearly basis. So the income I'm getting from this is now taxed at 30%, if I'm not mistaken.
No, please understand again here. Only when you declare that you have an income from it.
Got it.
Then suppose you have bought this painting. Okay, let us say talk about a painting format instead of crypto product.
Yeah, like an NFT. Yeah, because that's easier.
You want to sell it to me. Let us say you bought it for 1 lakh rupees. Now you sell it to me for 2 lakh rupees. The income is only that amount which you bought it for minus that. Suppose you had a holding, you took security measures, you took a cloud space, you did a lot of things, and you spent 50,000 rupees there. That will not be accounted for. Only the amount which you use for acquiring that asset would be. Let us say you bought it for 3 lakhs and you're selling it for 2 lakhs. That loss will not be accounted for here. But if there is an income which is there, you will have to pay 30%, by provided you declare that as an asset.
Right.
And suppose you're transferring to your child, your brother, your sister, your wife, your aunt, your parents, automatically 1% TDS would be deducted while transferring that asset.
Got it. At this point, the clarity that we have is it looks like there's a 30% flat tax on crypto and digital assets. And, we will have to still look at the fine print of the bill to see if this includes NFTs too, if I'm not mistaken. But on that note, also, I think one thing that a lot of people are celebrating out there, Professor Aman, is that there is no change to personal income tax slabs, which is what affects you and I directly. Let's talk about that a little bit, please.
Yes, I agree with you. There was a lot of expectation in terms of the tax slabs, especially for the middle class in particular, the women in particular, and some of the categories, in my opinion, like journalism, like, you are a journalist, journalism, because they have been working. Those people like doctors, nurses, these are the categories which should have been rewarded, in my opinion, for their hard work which they have put in during the time of Corona and COVID in the last 2 years, relentlessly, without fearing for their life and putting their life on the line. I think this is something, in my opinion, which is lacking, apart from 1 or 2 other factors. But you see, the fact is that how much can you actually tinker the tax? You have to move beyond tax. We have gone 70 years tinkering the tax every year. Now, is that all what is left? I think what is more important, in my opinion, is that the government looks at avenues for growth in my income. You see, people don't mind paying taxes. What people mind is if they have income. So if I get an opportunity to go about, and similarly, they talked about digital exchange. This is what we worked on. National Labor Exchange with Niti Aayog has been working on our research work, trying to create an exchange like the Bombay Stock Exchange for labor employment as well.
Fascinating.
And this is where, if they are able to do that, then you see, you can actually go about giving your times, 3 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours. Suppose you have a hobby for music. Suppose you have a hobby for teaching, but you're a journalist, but you have a hobby for teaching. So you could actually take up employment on different frameworks and work with that and increase your income. And I think this is something which is important. This is what the government has talked about. 35.4% increase in capex clearly showed, despite fiscal deficit, despite fiscal expenditure not being met by fiscal revenue, clearly is an indication to the fact that the government is ready. When I mean this, everybody has expenses and incomes, taxes. And this is where they are looking at doing those expenses. And those expenses are in terms of creating those platforms to, go about making the earnings for people. So if we get more, just 2 small figures I like to give. You see, in the last 2 years, you have had foreign exchange reserves go to about $660 billion, $50 billion. We had a flow of foreign direct investment going to about $7 billion, which I also projected for last 6 months. I have been saying this. This year we'll have it $7 billion per month coming into the country. About $1.5 billion was coming as reinvestment. The balance is fresh equity. Foreign direct investment means an investment for long term, setting up factory, setting up a company, or buying a company, or setting up a unit. That means employment. That means job for both unskilled and skilled. Then we had portfolio investment, which was the highest of 7 years. Last year, 35 billion. This year, it has already touched 42 billion. You can imagine. So people investing in short-term investment like the stock markets and all also have seen that growth. IPO, they mentioned in the economic survey
I'm
yesterday.
one of them.
I'll just take a second. IPO, 75 IPOs, 89,000 crores. Now, one said, why do you need to have stock market? Yes, I believe stock market is not a good indicator for an economy like India, because only about 6 to 7% of the total wealth of the nation is invested in stock market. It's a very small component. Unlike United States, where about 80 to 85% or even 90% of people's income is invested in stock market, where it can be a good barometer. But the fact that, these IPOs are coming, IPOs means new companies, growing companies, people who want to, from small, grow big, want money to be poured in by people. When you have that kind of money coming in, that means you're looking at acquiring businesses, you're looking at expanding businesses, you're looking at hiring people in millions and lakhs. So naturally, you're looking at growth. And this is what, in my opinion, this IPO figure in the economic survey gives you a rebounding factor. Lastly, in this particular point, I'd like to mention one more, if I give you a second, is the production-linked schemes. They've introduced the production-linked schemes where they've talked about the fact that the production-linked schemes, they spent about 1,97,000 crores last year, and they've increased that budget by 19,500 crores this year. These are in 13 sectors. What are these sectors? Automobile components. What are these sectors? Critical medical equipment, telecommunication technology, audiovisual aids, batteries, lithium batteries, which are required for EV vehicles and structures like that. Then solar PV panels, pharmaceutical structures, Medicare and others. So these are areas where small and micro firms have started moving in and are producing goods and services. So imagine the kind of boosting factor it has, a production linked services which is there. Sure. What in my opinion was lacking in the budget was, if they could have introduced incentivized tax-based frameworks based on employment and innovation. So those who bring in innovation, who bring in brand equity and evaluation of India, taking it at the world level, they should be given some incentive of tax break. Similarly, those people who are hiring more women or more employees as against the previous year, they should be given some incentive that, okay, we give you 2%, 3%, 5% tax break, so that, you are incentivized to hire more people instead of reducing your employee base.
Yeah.
Now, this is something, and we saw the effective. I can give you an example where women were introduced in the board level in the early 2000s. And they were said 5% tax break will be given to you if you have women as chairman of your board. What did it happen? People started keeping their wives and sisters and daughters on the board, thinking it will be there. But now those women are running these shows. Now the men are completely moved out. It's the women who are running those shows. So you empowered them. Why don't we try and empower? We want women to be employed. We say you have more women, we give you 3% break. So these are some incentivized incentive schemes which could have been introduced. And there is still a levy, because most finance ministers in the past have actually revised certain components based on the debates which take place in a span of 15 to 20 days. And that's why they produced this budget from March to February, so that they could take a turn if they want to take, because the implementation of this new budget is from 1st April and not before. And as a result, they could actually tweak the budget if they require, depending on the content like they get from programs like yours.
Right. For our viewers and listeners, I want to say at this point in time, a lot of people might not know this, but the Indian government largely classifies its income broadly into tax receipts and capital receipts, right? Money collected through taxes like GST, income tax and corporate taxes. That comes under tax receipts. And while money that is received from borrowings, dividend payments, disinvestments, etc., that comes under capital receipts. Now, taxes account for most of the government's income. Now, they are classified into two categories. We're talking indirect and direct taxes. And so, say, for example, someone like you and I that pay income tax is a form of direct tax, while, say, for example, if you file GST, that comes under indirect tax. And GST, for those of you who are unaware, is the biggest source of taxable of tax income for the government, followed by corporate tax, which becomes very important to know, especially in these times. And the reason that I say that is, like I said, no change in the income tax kind of bracket, income tax slab if I am paying my taxes. But what I also want to look at is there is an opportunity here that is allowing people to provide to correct errors that is made while filing taxes. So taxpayers can now file an updated return within 2 years from the relevant assessment year, according to the finance minister. Professor Aman, how do you feel this will
I think
help
this
people?
is a very interesting move. No, this is
Yeah.
a very interesting move made by the government, because this is actually honoring the honest taxpayer. As a small taxpayer, because now everybody files because of online framework. Most of us, including me, my family, we file our returns ourselves online instead of going to the chartered accountant, paying them a fee. It's not the fee, but certainly it's an ease now which we can do it, and we can understand our incomes and expenses better than many a times what a chartered accountant can, actually, because he's rushed with so many activities. Now, many a times we make these mistakes. Sometimes we don't include our income. Now, what will be the repercussion? If it goes through, great. If it doesn't go through, then there used to be penalties, there used to be taxes, they will be calling for accountability, there will be discussions and heavy penalties at times. The Nirmala Sitharamanji has this year introduced the fact that you can actually now look at a period of 2 years. You get this notice, don't worry. You say, oh, you realize that you have not had the income which you have declared, no problem. You disclose now. Revise your income statement. Yes, you have to pay penalty on the additional income tax which is due for you. You will have to pay interest also for the tax not paid in advance. But at least you will not be tagged as a person who is evading taxes or not disclosing income, and you will have an honest framework. And many of us do these kinds of mistakes. There is no person in this world who can actually abide all the laws in the world, and the tax is so complicated that you at times escape or misunderstand or do
Yeah.
something. Like even in medical expenses, I remember I had to check with my chartered accountant who does work for our institution. When I'm charging medical expenses, can I charge for my expenses for my parent? Now, I never did that in the past. And then I said, can I do that? They said, yes, you can do if they're not claiming anywhere else, which I did not know. Something, despite teaching finance for last 25 years, I had no idea about this particular factor, and I was not taking that benefit at all. Now, similar is the case of housing loan. A lot of people don't know the benefit you come in for. So many a time, you may not only a question of income, but even suppose some benefit you have not withdrawn,
Hmm.
you can now submit your return, and the government will reevaluate it and see if the income is due, they charge you. If it is not due, they refund you that amount. And that's
Right.
something which is, in my opinion, a very good decision taken by the Nirmala Sitharaman.
I'm going to talk about one thing that I like, Professor Aman, which is, the pandemic is, according to the finance minister, brought, and I agree with this, brought to the forefront the issue of mental health. And there's a national tele mental health program for counseling that's going to be launched. That's going to include a network of about 23 tele mental health centers of excellence, with NIMANS, which is in my city of Bangalore, being the nodal center, and Triple IT Bangalore for providing the technology support. Also, on an education front, we're seeing One Class One TV channel, which is a program of PM eVidya. That's going to be expanding from 12 to 200 TV channels, right? And that's going to enable all states to provide supplementary education in regional languages for classes 1 to 12. I think, more than anything else, when the union budget comes out, a lot of us, the first thing we look for is my tax bracket affected or not? But there are actually so many more layers to it. But I can say very confidently that you've broken it down so beautifully for us, Professor Aman. And more than that, you've made it so simple and easy for us to understand. So I want to thank you, honestly, from the bottom of my heart, for taking out the time to do this with us. On a parting note, is there anything you would like to say to all the listeners slash viewers, specifically talking about the financial year ahead, and how they can take the best advantage or make the best use of it?
No, I think the only message I like to give is that have confidence in yourself. The difficult period, if you have been vaccinated, then is great. If it is not vaccinated, please get your vaccination up. You see, world is having confidence in India. World Bank, where I worked 20 years back, is clearly saying we are looking at 9.5% growth. We are looking at a growing country. We are looking at a progressing country, a country which has come out of tremoring situations 2 years back to a good growth factor, which we have seen. It's a question of our own self having that confidence in this country and building on to it. I think we need to see things with a pinch of salt. There is no country, no family, no individual, even the richest of the rich, can provide everything. We recently saw a partition of one of the richest families in the world a couple of months back in the United States of America, which we run our softwares with today. But please understand, if that kind of richness could not provide them love and affection to be bounded together, how do we think? And when I was in the World Bank, I remember there used to be beggars sitting just exactly outside the World Bank office in Washington, D.C. Very poor people used to be there. Very downtrodden people used to be there. Begging was there. Theft was there in United, despite the riches which are there. So please understand, no one can provide for everything. We need to have hope. We need to have progress in our mind. We need to see things in a positive way. And if we are able to do that, we will do good for ourselves, our nation, our people around, and the humanity as a whole.
Super. Professor Aman Agarwal is, of course, professor of finance, and the wonderful part, like he told you, he's been teaching finance for 25 years. Have I got that right? 25? Yes.
Correct.
25 years. Beautiful. And, you've, like I said, done this so well, broken this so well for us. He is, of course, like I said, the vice chairman of the Indian Institute of Finance. If you do want to get in touch with him, say, for example, what's the best way for people to reach out to you, Professor Aman?
So they're welcome to reach me on email. They're welcome to reach me on a call. You're welcome to put it online if you want. My email address is aa@iif.edu, with the same name as aa@iif.edu. Or they can reach me at my office number, which is 4x9-321-585. Whichever way they like, they're most welcome. I'm a teacher. My doors are always open for people. If I am unable to take your call, I will always give you a call back and respond to you. Please don't feel disheartened. At times I'm in with prominent people like him when I can't take calls, and as a result, I may call you back later. But
you are too kind.
My doors are always open. You're welcome to come anytime, any day.
You are too kind, Professor Aman. Thank you so much. This has been wonderful, and I wish you all the very best. Thank you so much.
94.3 Radio 1.